New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning. Hello again, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. We do this every Friday morning here on the New Thought Media Network and take a look at what's going on in the world, what's up in the news, and sometimes we even find a spiritual perspective. No, we always find a spiritual perspective about it. So Good morning, Linda. Glad you're with us. Good to see you. Brother Wayne, our golden bubble of peace. Glad you're with us as well, sir. Anyone else that's out there watching, please feel free to join the conversation, chat along with our StreamYard system. We don't see that you're here until you chat along. So let us know you're in the room. Or if you're watching at a later time, feel free to do that as well. Yeah. We'll respond tomorrow, next week, whenever you might chat in. So. All right, Z, what a week.
Yes. I mean, yeah. I that's all I can say is yeah.
Yes, exactly. So first off, folks, we want to say a few things. There's a couple of celebrations. There's also a couple of not so fun anniversaries, but number one, it's Father's Day weekend here in the United States. So if you're a father or act as a father or serve as a father in any way, congratulations. Woo-hoo. Glad you're here. It's also Juneteenth. And here in Colorado, it's now about half of the states, I think, have actually given workers and people the day off on Monday and have made Monday a true holiday. Even though it's passed at the federal level, not all the states are doing anything. But congratulations. I guess congratulations isn't happy, or sorry, isn't appropriate, but happy Juneteenth as well. And it's Pride Month. So we're happy Pride all weekends long. And Z, one of the stories I saw this week that I think was interesting, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but there really is a move to take corporate sponsorship out of Pride. And that's what I thought you might say. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on that, right? It wasn't Pride about being accepted as mainstream or as normal, and what's more normal than the corporations ripping you off and branding your stuff for their benefit? That's as American as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that tongue-in-cheek thing that goes on, and the original, as I understand it, the original corporate sponsorship of it was to promote diversity and to create a platform or create an atmosphere so that the LGBTQ plus community, even if it wasn't there, felt like there was some kind of safety net or some kind of helping hand or something to that effect that would allow them to be accepted into communities and be able to function and live a life. But in the true capitalist way, some people are beginning to question, is it more capitalism now than corporate support?
Right.
And a very similar thing happened with Juneteenth. I think Walmart either created or got somebody to create some Juneteenth ice cream or something like that, and created a little stir. Now, I think corporations have to support these efforts, because what they're trying to do is create an environment and an atmosphere where all people are accepted, and true history is being taught so that people can expand. But when it crosses a line of being more profit than education and atmosphere raising,
Right.
then it to me it becomes questionable. I mean, we live in a capitalist society, so we know you need some money in this place, and we might talk a little bit about here in a little while the economy and inflation and all that. But for now, we want to honor Father's Day, Pride, and Juneteenth without any of the corporate stuff. We just want to celebrate fathers who are doing what they need to do. The end of slavery, which was the end of slavery in Texas on Juneteenth. Other states had different dates of the actual ending or notification. And Pride, where we can separate all of the fiction and deal with the facts about the LGBT community and what they provide and how they support us and have supported us forever.
Right. It's tricky. It really is. Like, if corporations don't support, then people of a unique demographic don't know which corporations are okay to support. And we also talked about this a little bit in you'll hear later, folks. Also, we had a discussion around the Cheney family this morning, and the fact that Mary Cheney spent a bunch of time helping Coors and the Coors family get beyond the perception a national boycott by LGBTQ community, and she's part of that community, and she helped a corporation that has its own history and its own problems. So was she able to move them forward, or was it a band-aid so they could make more profits? It's and truthfully, all these companies employ LGBTQ people.
Yep.
So it's hard to say you can't do that when a portion of your own workforce wants to see you doing this, to see. If you work for Walmart, you want to see Walmart giving money to Juneteenth organizations, to LGBTQ organizations. You want to see your company giving money where your values are as well. I don't know if this there's a move out there. I've seen it on Facebook, right, to get corporations out of Pride. We'll have to see how far that goes.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, quite frankly, that's going to put the onus on the organizations to raise all the money, right? So, or get people to donate something, and in my mind, it becomes less sustainable, right? I mean, given the corporate sponsorship, we know that may ebb and flow, but if it's a consistent commitment, there will always be something. But if there's not a pot of money, right, or a pot of supporters that's going to hold the torch and keep the flame burning, if you will, it will be subjected to some other kinds of pressures to keep it going, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so we're talking about money, and we're talking about corporations, and we're talking about pressures. That's our next big story of the week, folks. Actually, before we do, let's bring Linda into the conversation. If the corporations operate their business in a way that supports all as equal in hiring, promotions, and salaries, I think their financial support of a cause is great. Exactly.
Yes.
But we want to see the actions behind the money as well. We want to see that there's a commitment not just to throw money at something, but to be involved in the movement of equality forward, of equity forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like our patent saying from our founder Ernest Holmes, you gotta treat and move your feet. You gotta pray and have some action. You can't just give money and then don't, your actions are totally against the money that you're throwing in a specific way to support. So it's a both and. You have to be involved with your body and your money.
Yes. So again, speaking of money, folks, we saw something fairly unprecedented. What is it, 28 years or something?
Yeah.
The Fed raised the interest rate yesterday by 3/4 of a point.
Yeah.
3/4 of a point. That's the largest interest rate hike in quite a while. Z, tell us what this means.
It means that, first and foremost, everybody needs to make a budget. If you don't have a budget, you need to make a budget. Because if you just think about it, a year ago, you could get a mortgage for around, we'll just average it out and say 3%. There was some lower than 3% on a house. Now that interest rate is closer to 6%.
Yeah.
Right. So in 1 year, those rates have doubled, and they're looking to raise the rates a couple more times, maybe another 1.25 or 1.5 before the end of the year. Now, inflation, as we know, which is the rise of costs on goods, everybody sees that. And it's a multi-factor thing, right? We know COVID put some supply chain, so the supply is already low. Now the demand is up, and we don't have as much. And then the manufacturers can't get the stuff. I mean, we can go into a real round robin of how this happens, right? There's no one thing that caused it. It's always a conglomerate of things. But we have to begin to be conscious of what we're doing in all spheres, right? I mean, we have to look at our budgets. We have to look at our spending. Gas in California is $7 and change, almost $8 in some places out on the West Coast.
Unless you're that one guy at that one station who made a big mistake and set the pumps for 69 cents a gallon. And he's been fired from his position pretty quickly. They figured it out after about 7 or 8 hours. But for 7 or 8 hours, one station had it marked at $6.99 on the sign. But when you got to the pumps, it was only 69 cents. I got a feeling there were a whole bunch of really happy people about that one that day.
And it's so unfortunate, and I think people are feeling sad for the guy because it's an honest typing mistake, we know. And I heard that there is a GoFundMe, excuse me, a GoFundMe account to help raise $16,000 to pay back the company, which is what they figure they lost, so he could get his job back.
To pay the gas station. And that's the other thing there, right, is this isn't some evil empire that lost, right? If it was Mobil Gas or Exxon Oil that lost $16,000, no big deal. This is a mom and pop organ, right? None of these, it's all a family-owned business, and it was an honest mistake, and it's a shame they fired the guy. I understand, you've got to follow procedures, but I saw the statistic this past week. Corporate profits for oil companies have not gone down one bit in all of this. If anything, corporate profits are up over this same time last year. So we're not really seeing a lack of gasoline anywhere. What we're seeing is corporate greed.
Yeah. And, I have a friend, and one of their kids work in the oil and gas business, trading oil and gas. And their bonus check, not the salary, their bonus check was over $100,000.
Right.
So you know how much money that person must have made to get a bonus of $100,000.
Right.
So the oil and gas companies are making lots of money. And when we look at that the economy. I mean, we are now in a situation where we have I forget the word, the trifecta of thing. You know, we got the economy, we got the weather, we got the political thing, and all of this keeps things stirred, and the spiral is going up. I mean, you think about the economic effect of what it's going to take to fix Yellowstone, the northern part of the Yellowstone that just got hit by floods and street. I mean, they're saying they may have to close the thing for the whole year, that part anyway. What's the economic effect of that? Those people up there, they depend on people coming to the parks. They can't, if you're in there, you can't get out. And if you're not in, you can't get in.
Right. Yes, I agree. We do have a very precipice of, like, we're on a precipice here between the impacts of climate change and global, and let's call it what it is, global warming. All right, it's not just the climate is changing, the planet is getting hotter, and the global warming that's happening, as well as there are a lot of politicians that don't seem to care. We're going to talk a little bit today as well, folks, about what's happening in Washington, D.C., but I've got a lot of respect right now for Liz Cheney standing up for what she believes and principles of America and trying to get to the truth of what happened on January 6th, rather than, because she's going to lose her seat in Congress over all of this. Everybody's saying she's going to lose in Wyoming because of her taking a stand. We need to get more people taking a stand, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's sad when the proverbial writing is on the wall about so many things in this country, and we don't pay heed. I mean, like today, right? Just on the weather pattern, because I can't get over it. 3/4 of the country, of this country, 3/4 of it today will be 75 degrees or higher, right? Most of the places in that 3/4 are going to be 85 and 90 degrees or higher. Now, I mean, the only places that's going to be chilly, if you will, is like Seattle and Portland and you know, San Francisco, stuff that's right there on the coast where the weather patterns come in. Everything else is like in the 90s. I mean, here in Denver, it's going to be 96. Salt Lake City is going to be 98. Vegas, 103. I mean, for someone to say that there's no change and that is not a cumulative effect, you know, and one more soapbox opera on the weather, because I am, you know, it's unfortunate, and I forget the two journalists' name, but they just confirmed that 2 journalists down in Brazil in the Amazon were killed while they were out there doing research on the cutting down of trees and everything. They were killed in like the 8th of June, but for trying to show that we cannot continue to just go in these places that are creating atmosphere and everything for the planet and continue to just indiscriminately cut it down and destroy it.
Yeah. It's well, I'm going to echo again what our friend Linda says. As a practitioner of New Thought, these times challenge me to practice abundance principles. And I'm going to encourage you, Linda, to let's put the abundance aside for a second. Let's get into the truth principles. Let's get into the principles of truth, that we are one life, that this is one thing happening on the planet, and we have to be willing to stand for that one life. Now, if that means going to Pride March next weekend in Denver here, then call me. We'll make sure you know the details and you can join us. If it means calling your senators and saying, hey, we need to vote in this direction, I want to see more of this in my life, or in our lives, now is the time where we have to not just practice the principles in our minds and in our hearts, but we have to practice the principles out in the streets. Yeah. And we have to practice the principles in our supermarkets, and we have to practice. And that means we have to practice the principles when we're driving. And being a little, I watched a guy yesterday run a red light, must have been 2-3 seconds behind the light. Luckily I was the third car, so I wasn't the first one trying to get across the intersection. Now is the time where I believe we get to practice, but we also have to demonstrate these universal principles of truth.
And part of those truths, or part of those principles, or one of those principles, is stewardship. Be a good steward. Because I've seen so many people lean heavily on one side, the prosperity side, but they're not good stewards of what they already have. And we know that we live a cause and effect reality. And so part of that is being good stewards. Don't just leave the lights on when nobody's in the room. Don't just leave the water. If the water's dripping, get a new washer so it doesn't go drip, 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 drip. I mean, simple things to show that we are good stewards of what God has already provided us with, so that we can continue to support ourselves, the planet, and everybody on it.
Yep. You hit on a point that I love to. If you're using air conditioning or a swamp cooler or anything like that at this time of the year, because it's hot out, we get that. You don't need to set that thing to 63, right? You don't need to. Couple of degrees cooler than what it is outside, you're going to feel fine. It's going to feel great. You're going to save energy in the process. Not to mention you can save yourself some bucks by not running all that stuff. So here's our bottom line, I think, folks, is yes, it is an abundant universe. Yes, we do practice abundance principles, and we practice universal principles. Stewardship being one of those. And yes, having a prosperity consciousness and being willing to share that, being willing to share the road, being willing to help someone out when they need a little help, getting out of the, hey, it's all about me, and moving into the, it's all about we. It's all together. We're making this happen. Individually, nothing really happens.
No, it does not. And the sooner we can figure that out and work together. I mean, a prime example in my mind of the community vibe is to look at an ant colony or look at a bee colony.
Right.
They work together tirelessly because they understand without the community, there is no them. Even, because they keep everybody in touch. They let everybody know when danger's coming. They let everybody know what the food source is. And they work together to make sure that everybody is taken care of. Now, some more or less based on a whole variety of reasons. But the concept of community and working together and supporting each other and sharing information and resources, those colonies, of bees or ants are just tremendous to show us what's possible. I mean, I'm from the South, and if you've ever seen an ant colony get washed away by the rain, I mean, completely washed away, and within a day, they've got that ant mound bigger and grander than it was before, because they immediately start working together to build it back.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of which, we want to talk a little bit about information today, because if you're alive in America, you've been inundated by a ton of information, one way or the other, regarding January 6th of last year, and what is now many places referred to as the Great American Insurrection. And I don't know about you, Z, but I've been doing it's not fun. I'll tell you that. It's not fun to spend 2-3 hours a day listening to these politicians go on and on. And yet what it appears is emerging is that our former president knew what was going on was illegal and was promoting it, was helping, and was making it, and was working diligently to do anything to remain in power. in the face of what everybody agrees is now is an election won by Joe Biden that was not stolen. And we have some heroes standing up. As I mentioned earlier, Liz Cheney is pretty much losing her career as a politician, or at least this seat. I think we'll see her come back again to make a stand for what she believes is right. What have you been seeing during these committee hearings and the publication of it?
Well, I think there's been some interesting comments by people that were close to the president, who in their interviews, said they were against it, that they knew. I guess the strange thing is, it seems like there were a lot of people who knew it was ludicrous and they spoke against it. But the question in my mind is, how diligent were you in trying to convince or even cajole or even push the president away from this? I'm not a Trump fan at all, right? I will be honest though. When he first came in, having lived in New York for a while, I had this idea that, all right, he's got some shady stuff, but if he goes in and he tries to run this as a business and try to include everybody, all the departments of the business, if you will, to be successful, I thought he might have had a inkling to do something, but he just went completely bonkers. And for him to do that just created all kind of madness. And so all that to say, to say that he had intelligent, smart people with him, most of them anyway, there was some off to the left side of him. He has just allowed himself, his family, and the democratic process to delve into this cantankerous atmosphere that is quite frankly tugging at the fabrics of this country and the democracy that we hold. And I'm seeing in this hearings, the part that I've watched so far, that people have lost sight of that, and it seems that they're more or oftentimes they're in it for their own gain, for their own promotion, for their own whatever, and then they make these bold statements after, but we needed you up front to stop all of it.
Right. That's part of my question. Where was Ivanka on January 4th? Why was she not out in the streets, on the news channels, beating a drum, telling people this is getting dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
Why were not many of these folks that we're now seeing try to cover their own tracks? Why were they not out on the news stations?
Right.
This was information that seems readily available to the inner circles of that organization, that group, but nobody was willing to actually speak the truth to the American people. They seemed to be willing to speak truth to the power in the room, even though he couldn't hear it. None of them wanted to speak truth to the American people until now, until they're being forced to. And that's my prayer this weekend in moving through the rest of these hearings is that, well, number one, democracy does survive. And there's our spoiler alert, folks. Democracy will survive. Democracy does survive this. However, again, I think this is our work, to do our work in consciousness, that our politicians are more willing, and the power players of DC are willing and feel compelled to speak truth to the people moving forward from this place. And that is that affirmation that I am holding. And the action piece for me is I'm laying it on the line with the people that I vote for. I'm more than ever, I want to see some commitment to speaking truth to the people on a variety of issues.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be, we've seen through some of these primary elections that, you know, some of a few of Trump's minions have won the GOP candidate, primary candidate. So it will be interesting to see come the general election in November. How it's going to be nip and tuck here. I honestly believe, I hate to say that, but people have bought into this. I mean, the whole idea that's prevalent is this whole separatist thing. Unfortunately, I mean, and as I say that, I just think about one of the things you talked about. One of the bad celebrations or remembrance or historical points is the mass shooting at the church down in South Carolina 7 years ago, and then just yesterday we had a mass shooting. It would be considered a mass shooting at a church in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I mean, this rhetoric, this firebrand talk is tearing us apart at the seams. And if we keep acting like it's not there, we don't figure out how we can get involved, we placate it, or we stick our head in the sand, we're going to wake up one morning and find ourselves in a place that we do not want to be.
Right. White nationalism and the sense of separation, absolutely. A driving wedge in our American consciousness right now. Hey, before we wrap up today, our friend Carol Lawrence, who is part of a great team, does a podcast here on Monday mornings with Reverend Bill Marchione called Practical Prayer. Welcome, Carol. Carol says, I saw and remembered how Trump treated the employees at the Taj, that's be the Taj Mahal Hotel in Atlantic City, how he walked away from them, leaving them high and dry. That's who ran for president, and that's who walked into the Oval Office. You take yourself wherever you go. Absolutely, Carol. You do take yourself wherever you go. And we hold that there is also always the opportunity to better. Yeah. I don't have much faith that Donald Trump's ever going to make good on any of that stuff. And I pretty sure he's never going to make good on any of it. I'm pretty sure he's never going to take personal responsibility for anything that happened on January 6th either. And I have to leave that door open. I have to leave that door open a crack. I have to leave it at least unlocked, that if he were to choose to better himself, we know it's possible. And if it's possible, I don't want to discount him completely. I don't want to throw him away, right? It's even incarceration can sometimes lead to a wholesale change in someone's life. Not always, not often, but there are those stories out there. And I agree with you. I would like to see some evidence of him trying to do better also. I'd like to see, and I think this is a great point, because this is the conversation we need to take out into the streets. Yeah. This is the conversation to have with our friends and maybe family that are on the edge of this conversation. There's someone in my life who was at January 6th. Now it's someone I haven't talked to for a bit, and the pandemic pushed that friendship farther apart than it already had been due to space and time and all the things. But when I found out this person was at January 6th, my mind was just like, that's it, we're done. Nope. Boom. And this is a person that follows the New Thought philosophy. Yeah. Wow. I have to leave the door open to have a conversation, to be able to say, how could we possibly vote for the same thing we got back in 2016? Yeah. We can't vote. And there are people that are lining up to vote for that again in 2024. Now is the time to start having these conversations and saying, I don't see anything moving better. I don't see, and it's not the current president's fault. I don't see anything moving because our past president continues to feed the flames of separation and white nationalism. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just think about it. I know we're running on time. When you think about that incident that happened in Idaho,
where they had a U-Haul truck full of separatists who were going to a pride event to cause God knows what. I mean, that's scary.
31 armed white supremacists in a U-Haul truck, yes, on the way. And the only reason something more serious didn't happen is a good person with a phone, a good person with a telephone. Somebody picked up the phone and said, I'm at a hotel and I just watched this happen. I just watched a whole ton of guys with weapons get in a U-Haul truck, and police were able to intercept that vehicle. But it took somebody willing to say something, someone willing to take action, not just stand at the window and say, oh, I pray nobody gets hurt today. I pray those young men are safe out there. I pray they're not doing anything wrong. And officer, I just saw something that doesn't look right.
I prayed on it first, but I'm calling you too.
My prayer said, pick up a phone.
Yeah.
What a way to start a Friday, huh, folks? We don't, we never promise we're going to figure all this stuff out. And what we know is through the discussion, through being willing to have these conversations and look at what's going on in our world, that's how we can find a spiritual solution. Yeah. Yes, it takes prayer. Yes, it takes our willingness to follow the inspiration of those prayers. And I guess that's our point for today. Pray, treat, and move your feet.
Yeah. We have to be involved. It's one thing to sit back and be critical and make observations and make, all kinds of remarks. But at some point, if you really want to be effective and taken seriously, you have to get involved, however that is, other than just criticizing and putting down. Even if it's just starting a conversation with your own friend to be able to talk intelligently about this information and educate.
Yes. Yes. All right, folks, I think we have just about run out of our time here today. Before we go, though, however, we would love it if you would stick around, take one more. This one's a 30-second. Say thank you to our sponsors and financial supporters.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.
All right, folks, I think it's time before we go for final thoughts. Z, final thoughts for the day?
Yeah, final thoughts is go celebrate. There's plenty to celebrate this weekend. Father's Pride, Juneteenth. Go celebrate the human family and the efforts we make to keep ourselves safe, uplifted, and inspired to live in a world that works for everyone.
Yes. And you stole it. Well, can't steal because it's all one mind, but that was exactly what I'm thinking. Go celebrate, have a good time, whatever that may be. And when or if you see someone with a flag or a sign or something that you don't agree with, don't separate.
Yeah.
Go have the conversation. Celebrate, don't separate, conversate. Yeah. Get with that and be genuine. Hey, I need to know what is this for you, so that you can have a true conversation, not just an accusation, not just an argument, but a conversation. And in that conversation, you get to be New Thought. You get to share these universal principles of love and peace and abundance and prosperity, and go do that.
I love it.
We'll be back again next week, folks. I think we might have a guest with us next week, but I can't remember who it is offhand. So, but I'm pretty sure we have a special guest next week with us. And we've got a few special guests coming up in the next few weeks. Oh, yes, it's Reverend Karen Fox. I cannot wait to introduce you to this woman. Next week's going to be a firecracker of a show. So please share this one with your friends, and please plan to be with us again next Friday, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Until then, wishing you peace and richest blessings.
Peace.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.